Let me tell you something very, very important. The world doesn't owe you anything. Nobody is coming to save you. And the truth is, the moment you realize that, when it finally clicks, you become unstoppable. People ask, how do you get so lucky? Well, I'll tell you, I outwork everybody. I stay longer, push harder, think deeper, and I don't stop. That's not luck. That's dominion. That's what winners do. Now listen, everybody wants the blessing, but they don't want the burden. They want the crown, but they don't want the cross. That's not how it works. You want the breakthrough? Then you break yourself. You sacrifice, you discipline, you give everything. And even when you have nothing left, you keep going. Because in that moment, that space of emptiness and obedience, that's where greatness begins. That's when luck starts to knock. You see, people think luck is random. That's the lazy man's excuse. But the truth, the deep truth, is that luck chases the prepared. It follows the relentless. It's magnetized by faith-filled effort. If you've got the courage to sweat, if you've got the patience to endure, if you've got the strength to keep your mouth shut while your work speaks, then you will attract miracles. You will. And here's what they don't understand. Emotional detachment is not weakness, it's power. When you're emotionally fragile, you break under pressure. But when you're detached, spiritually locked in, heart full of purpose, you become a force. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop needing approval and start walking in authority. You stop explaining and start executing. The people who win don't cry about setbacks. They don't whine when they're overlooked. They don't crumble when they're criticized, because they've already died to that part of themselves. They're not in it for applause. They're in it for the assignment. They know who they are, and they're not controlled by how they feel. That's what separates leaders from the rest. I'll tell you what happens when you work harder than everybody else. You get noticed, not by man, by heaven, by destiny. You stir the supernatural. You activate doors no man can shut. And people start calling it luck because they can't explain how you did it. But you know how many late nights, how many lonely days, how many silent battles it took. That's not luck. That's alignment. Detach from emotion. Detach from people's opinions. Detach from temporary pleasures. That's not losing your humanity. That's claiming your divinity. That's not becoming cold. That's becoming clear. And when you're clear, you're dangerous. You can hear from above. You can move with fire. You can silence demons, internal and external, and walk straight through opposition like it was nothing. Let them call it luck. Let them guess. Let them talk. But you keep working, keep rising, keep dominating, because the harder you work, the luckier you get. And that's not just a mindset, it's a mandate. Discipline builds destiny, because greatness doesn't arrive at your doorstep uninvited. It's something you must go out and conquer. Discipline is the daily decision to show up when no one is clapping, to grind when your emotions scream for comfort, and to stay focused when distractions beg for your attention. It's not glamorous, it's not always exciting, but it is sacred, because when you choose discipline, you're choosing to honor your future more than your feelings. People who rely on motivation are tourists in success. But people who live by discipline, they're the architects of legacy. Every empire, every movement, every life of significance was forged in the quiet obedience of discipline. It's the secret ingredient the lazy ignore and the weak resent. Discipline is spiritual because it demands you die to your excuses. You say no to what you want now so you can say yes to what matters forever. That kind of self-governance requires vision. It requires faith. It means you've seen the end and you're willing to walk through the fire to get there. You're not chasing a feeling. You're pursuing a future. Discipline separates those who dream from those who dominate. Dreams without discipline are just fantasies. Ideas without consistency rot in the cemetery of potential. But when discipline enters the equation, things move. Atmospheres shift. Patterns break. You don't need hype. You don't need external validation. You just need that inner covenant, a commitment to excellence that doesn't fade when it gets hard. And it will get hard. It will test your nerves, your patience, your belief. But that's where destiny is built. Not in comfort, but in pressure. The beauty of discipline is that it doesn't care about your mood. It's not swayed by how you feel when you wake up. Discipline says, I said I would, so I will. It's divine follow-through. And every time you obey that voice, every time you push through resistance, you're sowing seeds into your future. You're becoming someone unstoppable. Not because you're the most talented, not because you're the most liked, but because you're the most consistent. People underestimate the spiritual power of structure. They think chaos is freedom, but that's a lie. True freedom is found in discipline. When your emotions don't own you, when your habits are mastered, when your day is governed by purpose instead of impulse, that's when you walk in authority. That's when heaven begins to back your steps. The world may not see it yet. Your results might be hidden now, but keep planting, keep showing up, because discipline builds momentum, and momentum births manifestation. In the end, it's not luck, not charm, not convenience that writes your story. It's discipline. The boring days, the painful nights, the silent obedience. When nobody is watching, that's where kings are formed. That's where queens are crowned. And if you stay the course, if you refuse to flinch, destiny won't just knock, it'll kick the door wide open. Luck is the reward of preparation meeting bold action. That's the truth the world doesn't want to hear. People love the idea of overnight success. They want to believe someone just stumbled into greatness by chance, as if life randomly hands out trophies to the undeserving, but it doesn't. Luck, as they call it, is actually a disguise. It's what results look like when someone has been quietly grinding, preparing, sharpening, and showing up again and again when no one is watching. And when the opportunity finally appears, because it always does, they're not surprised, they're ready, they're dangerous. They're walking in what they've already claimed through discipline and sacrifice. There are people who spend their lives waiting for the right moment, the perfect timing, the sign from above. But the people who seem lucky don't wait for permission. They act, they move, they take the risk. And because they've been preparing in silence, that bold action pays off. It's not an accident. It's not a fluke. It's a divine collision of work and opportunity. That's the formula for what the world calls luck. Preparation is spiritual. It's faith in motion. It means you believe something is coming even when you can't see it. You train in the dark because you believe the light will eventually find you. You rehearse the speech before you're ever invited to speak. You build the system before the demand arrives. That's what separates the so-called lucky from the wishful. The ones who get the call are the ones who have been building the answer all along. Bold action is not reckless. It's not just doing random things, hoping they work out. It's the fire that ignites preparation. It's stepping out even when the path isn't clear, because you've already equipped yourself to handle whatever comes. Bold action is the bridge between potential and proof. You can be the most talented, most gifted, most spiritually anointed person in the room, but if you don't move, you lose. You forfeit the blessing because you're afraid of failing. But the people who get lucky don't fear failure. They use it. They turn mistakes into momentum and setbacks into strategy. This world doesn't reward the idle. It rewards those who dare. The ones who take the shot, launch the idea, knock on the door, and when it works, others will say, they're so lucky. But what they didn't see was the 10,000 hours, the broken nights, the prayers without answers, the rehearsals in isolation. That's the price. That's the preparation. That's the quiet obedience that luck responds to. So if you want to be lucky, prepare like it's guaranteed and act like it's already yours. Don't envy the blessed, become one. Don't curse the delay. Use it. Because the moment your preparation meets your action, you won't need luck. You'll become it. And the world won't know what hit them. Emotion is noise, purpose is signal. Most people spend their lives chasing feelings, reacting to moods, and making decisions based on temporary waves of emotion. That's why they stay stuck. They're driven by what they feel instead of what they're called to do. And feelings are fickle. They change with the weather. One day you're confident, the next you're doubting everything. One moment you're excited, then suddenly you're afraid. That's the trap. Emotion screams loud, but it rarely leads to truth. Purpose, on the other hand, is quiet. It's stable. It's anchored in something bigger than your mood. When you learn to ignore the noise and listen to the signal, you begin to walk in power. You can't build anything worthwhile while being led by emotion, because emotion always wants comfort. It wants safety. It wants validation. Purpose doesn't care about any of that. Purpose wants obedience. Purpose wants consistency. Purpose says, I know this is hard. I know this doesn't feel good, but do it anyway. That's where transformation happens. Not when everything is aligned emotionally, but when you align your decisions with destiny instead of discomfort. It's not that emotions are evil, they're human, but they're not meant to be in charge. They're indicators, not instructors. They show you what you're feeling, not what you're supposed to do. That's why spiritual maturity requires emotional detachment. Not numbness, not coldness, but clarity. You acknowledge your feelings, but you don't bow to them. You see the storm, but you don't let it change your direction. That's strength. That's authority. That's leadership over self. When you allow emotion to control your life, you give your power away. You become reactive, easily manipulated, and unstable. You lose your focus. But when you stay locked in on your purpose, you become unmoved by external chaos. You can walk through fire and not flinch. You can be underestimated and still build. You can feel fear and still act in faith. That's what sets warriors apart from wanderers. Purpose gives you direction when your heart is confused. Purpose gives you fuel when your energy runs low. It's the reason behind your resistance. It's what makes sacrifice feel sacred. The people who win long-term are not the most talented, not the most emotional, not even the most passionate. They're the ones who can silence the noise. They've trained themselves to respond, not react. They don't panic and pressure. They don't chase highs. They stay steady because they know that emotion comes and goes, but mission's eternal. And once you lock into your mission, emotion has no power over you. You don't need to feel like it to do it. You just do it because it's who you are. Purpose will cost you emotional comfort, but it will give you spiritual authority. And that's the exchange. Let go of the noise. Lock into the signal. Stop listening to the storm and start listening to the calling. When you do that, everything changes. You stop floating and start flying. Work ethic silences doubt. World full of opinions, noise, and endless voices trying to define you. The one thing that shuts it all down is work. Not talk, not hype, not appearances, just raw, relentless work. Doubt thrives in silence and delay and indecision. But when you move, when you grind, when you commit yourself to consistent execution, doubt loses its grip. You don't need to defend yourself when your discipline is loud. You don't have to argue with critics when your results are undeniable. Work becomes your voice, your weapon, your shield. It proves what your words never could. Doubt is like a shadow. It only stretches when you stand still, but when you move, when you walk with purpose, when you hustle without hesitation, that shadow shrinks. And this isn't just about proving people wrong. It's about proving your own mind wrong. Because let's be honest, the loudest doubts don't come from others. They come from inside you. That inner voice that whispers, you're not ready, you're not enough, you're going to fail. But when you go to work, you answer that voice. Every rep, every late night, every focused hour is a statement. I belong here. I'm built for this. The most dangerous person in the room is not the loudest. It's the one who works when no one's watching. The one who doesn't need applause. The one who's been in the dark, quietly mastering the craft, building the foundation, setting the pace. And when they emerge, people call it talent or luck. But it's not. It's sweat. It's hours. It's sacrifice. That kind of work ethic is a force. It kills excuses. It exposes laziness. It commands respect without ever asking for it. You don't rise by wishing or waiting. You rise by working. And the beauty is, work ethic doesn't lie. You either did the work or you didn't. And if you did, you have peace. You walk with confidence, not because everything is perfect, but because you know what you've invested. And that confidence, it's silent but heavy. It walks into rooms before you speak. It shows up in your eyes, in your posture, in your presence. Doubt can't stand in the face of that. Consistency over time builds credibility, not just with the world, but with yourself. When you keep showing up, when you keep doing the hard things, you start trusting yourself again. You stop second guessing. You stop seeking validation because the work becomes your identity. It shapes you, sharpens you, and before you know it, the same battles that used to intimidate you now look small. The same doubts that once haunted you now disappear before they reach your door. So when doubt rises, you don't need to talk back. You don't need to panic. Just go back to work, build, create, show up, keep your head down and your spirit high. Because when your work ethic roars, doubt has no room to speak. It's silenced completely by your consistency. Detachment is dominance. When you are no longer controlled by your emotions, your need for approval, or the chaos around you, you become unstoppable. You stop reacting and you start ruling. Emotional detachment isn't about becoming numb or disconnected from reality. It's about standing so firmly in your identity, your purpose, and your truth that external circumstances no longer shake you. That's when you start to walk in real power, because the person who is not easily moved cannot be easily manipulated. People think dominance means aggression, control, or loudness. That's not real strength. Real strength is quiet. It's calm under pressure. It's rooted in wisdom. The one who can stay focused when others panic, who can stay composed when others explode, that's the one who dominates. When your emotions are running wild, you're a puppet. But when you master them, when you learn how to observe your feelings without being ruled by them, you rise above the noise. You operate from vision, not reaction. And that's when your decisions carry weight. That's when your presence demands attention without saying a word. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about the right things. It means you've prioritized your purpose over your pain, your mission over your mood, your future over your feelings. That is spiritual maturity. That is kingdom thinking, because when you're always triggered, always responding emotionally to what people say or do, you waste your energy on battles that don't even matter. But when you detach, you conserve your strength for what's truly worth fighting for. You don't have to chase every critic. You don't have to answer every insult. You're too busy building, too focused on winning, too elevated to descend into drama. It's not that emotions are bad. They're real, they're valid, but they're not meant to lead. When you allow them to take the driver's seat, they'll drive you off a cliff. Detachment gives you the ability to choose your response instead of being a prisoner of your reaction. It's about power. It's about clarity. It's about making decisions from a place of intention rather than desperation. And that's how leaders are made, not by how loud they yell, but by how deeply they're anchored. The more detached you become from external validation, the more connected you become to internal vision. You stop living for likes and start living from legacy. You stop needing applause and start demanding results. And that kind of mindset is rare. That kind of discipline is uncommon, but it's also unstoppable. Because when nothing external can break your internal focus, you've already won. You've stepped into a realm of dominion that few ever reach. So yes, detachment is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's how you protect your peace, preserve your energy, and prepare for war without showing your hand. The detached man is the dangerous man. The woman who doesn't flinch under pressure is the one who shifts the room. That's not arrogance, it's authority. That's not indifference, it's insight. And that's the mindset that takes you from surviving to ruling. Grind attracts grace. There is something divine about relentless effort. When you move with consistency, when you work with integrity, when you show up with excellence, even when no one's watching, something begins to shift in the unseen. The universe responds, heaven responds, God responds, because grind is not just a physical activity, it's a spiritual posture. It says, I'm willing to carry the weight. I'm willing to do the hard things. I'm willing to pay the price. And that kind of commitment never goes unnoticed. Grace doesn't chase the lazy. It doesn't fall on those who sit back waiting for life to hand them success. Grace follows those who grind, because grinding is proof of faith. It's faith in motion. You don't grind when you're full of excuses. You grind because you believe something greater is coming. You grind because quitting is not an option. That's what draws the supernatural. That's what opens doors no man can close. When you do your part, when you do everything you possibly can with what you've been given, grace steps in and does the rest. There are moments in life when nothing makes sense. The odds are stacked against you, the path seems blocked, and people count you out. But if you keep grinding, if you keep pushing with all your strength and trust that something bigger than you is watching, that's when breakthrough happens. It doesn't always come the day you want it. It doesn't arrive wrapped in comfort or convenience, but it comes. And when it comes, it makes everything you endured worth it. The grind refines you. It sharpens your focus. It teaches you to rely on something deeper than emotion. And grace meets you in that process. Not because you earned it, but because you aligned yourself with it. That's the key. Grace doesn't reward laziness. It responds to obedience. It responds to humility. When you grind with a pure heart, when your motive is to serve, to build, to fulfill your assignment, not to impress, then grace surrounds you like armor. It covers your gaps. It carries your weaknesses. It lifts you in moments where your strength runs out. People may not understand why you work the way you do. They may think you're obsessed, too intense, too focused. Let them talk, because while they're explaining failure, you're creating results. While they're waiting on favor, you're attracting it through your effort. It's not magic, it's principle. The harder you work, the more you make room for favor to flow, not because you're chasing perfection, but because you're honoring your calling.
So yes, grind.
Work like it all depends on you, but believe like it all depends on grace. That balance is power. That mindset is unstoppable. Because when grind meets grace, doors swing open, chains break, levels shift, and people look at your life and say, how did it happen? But you'll remember every moment you showed up tired, every morning you kept going, every hour you stayed disciplined, and you'll know the grind attracted the grace. Pressure bursts power. There's no greatness without struggle, no authority without adversity, no crown without conflict. Every champion you've ever seen, every leader you've ever admired, every success story that made headlines behind it, there was pressure, tremendous pressure, the kind that breaks the average and builds the exceptional, the kind that exposes what's weak and awakens what's strong. Pressure doesn't come to destroy you, it comes to introduce you to who you really are. And when you embrace it instead of resisting it, that's when power begins to rise from within. Most people run from pressure, they pray it away, they see it as punishment. But the truth is, pressure is the process. It's how diamonds are made. It's how warriors are trained. It's how leaders are forged. You don't develop power in comfort. You develop it in crisis. You develop it in the moment where giving up seems easier than pressing on, but something inside you says, not yet, keep going. That internal voice, that resolve is the power that pressure was sent to unlock. You can't fake strength under pressure. You can't pretend to be disciplined, focused, or resilient when life is squeezing you. Pressure reveals the real. It strips away the mask. It shows you where your faith stands, where your mindset is planted, and how deep your roots really go. But that revelation is a gift, because once you see what you're made of, you can build from it. You can train it. You can refine it. That's how pressure shifts from being something you fear to something you welcome, because you realize every time pressure shows up, it's offering you another level. There's something sacred about those moments when you're on the edge, when you're tired, tested, torn, and yet you keep showing up. That's not weakness, that's power being born, the power to endure, the power to think clearly under fire, the power to lead when others are lost. And that power is what elevates you, not just in the eyes of people, but in the eyes of purpose. Because once you've endured real pressure and survived, there's nothing the world can throw at you that can take you out. You can't gain this kind of power by avoiding problems. You gain it by walking through them with your head held high. You gain it by choosing faith when fear is louder. You gain it by working under stress, loving under tension, believing when everything around you says stop. And the more you do that, the more powerful you become, not in a superficial way, but in a way that radiates from the inside out. Your voice changes, your presence carries weight, your decisions carry clarity, because pressure didn't crush you, it crowned you. So let the pressure come, let it stretch you, mold you, challenge you. Because with every ounce of pressure you survive, a new level of power is unlocked. And that power, it's not borrowed, it's not temporary, it's yours. You earned it, you became it, and no one can take it away. Confidence comes from work, not words. You can talk about your goals all day long, you can hype yourself up, declare affirmations, post quotes, and make promises. But until you do the work, real work, confidence will always be fragile. Words can only take you so far. They're cheap when not backed by effort, but when your hands are dirty, when your back aches from the grind, when you've sacrificed comfort for commitment, that's when confidence becomes unshakable. That's when you walk into a room and don't need to speak because your discipline speaks for you. People want to feel confident before they take action, but confidence doesn't precede work. It's a result of it. You gain it when you keep showing up, when you do the hard things consistently, when you build credibility with yourself. You can't fake that. You can't borrow it. You earn it by keeping promises to yourself that no one else sees. You train when it's not required. You practice when it's not glamorous. And in doing so, you create a reservoir of certainty that no criticism, no failure, no opposition can drain. Confidence built on talk collapses under pressure. Because when life tests you and it will empty words don't hold weight, the storm doesn't care about your declaration. But when you've trained through pain, when you've studied while others slept, when you've worked, when no one clapped, that becomes your anchor. That's the confidence that doesn't shake when the ground moves. It doesn't mean you feel perfect every day. It means you know who you are because you've proven it through action, not talk. The people who radiate true confidence have usually been through the fire. They've faced failure, they've fallen, but they've also gotten back up every time. And in doing so, they've discovered something most never will, that confidence is forged, not found. It's not a personality trait, it's a consequence. It's what happens when you've battled excuses and chosen discipline over and over again. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need applause. You don't need approval because you know what you've built and you know what you can carry. That's why you can't shortcut the process. You can't fake grind. You can't skip the struggle and still expect to stand tall. That confidence is quiet. It doesn't yell. It doesn't brag. It walks in calm and commands respect without demanding it. Why? Because the work has already been done behind the scenes. You've already won battles most people never see. So when you speak, people listen not because you talk louder, but because you walk heavier. So if you want to be confident, stop waiting to feel it. Start earning it. Do the work that nobody wants to do. Embrace the repetition. Celebrate the discipline. Stack your days with consistent, focused action, and soon you won't need to tell people what you can do. They'll feel it when you walk in. Because confidence isn't built in the spotlight, it's built in the shadows and revealed through results. Faith without effort is fantasy. You can believe all you want. You can speak it, declare it, visualize it, pray about it. But if you're not putting in the work, it's nothing more than a dream dressed in religious language. Real faith moves. Real faith builds. Real faith sweats. Belief without action is just imagination. It feels good. It sounds powerful, but it doesn't produce. Faith isn't passive. It's aggressive. It's aggressive. It drives you. It compels you. It doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It creates them. Too many people confuse hope with faith. Hope sits and wishes. Faith stands and works. Hope waits to be rescued. Faith gets up and fights. Faith is not just thinking something will happen. It's preparing like it already has. It's showing up every day, putting your hands to the plow and refusing to let go until the harvest shows up. You don't need more affirmations. You don't need more signs. You need motion. You need to move like it's already yours. That's the kind of faith that gets rewarded. Effort is the physical proof of spiritual belief. When you put in the work, you're saying, I believe this matters. I believe this is worth building. I believe this is part of my calling. Talk is easy. Commitment costs. And the people who walk in authority are the ones who are willing to pay that price daily. It's not just about hustle. It's about alignment. It's about moving in the direction of what you claim to believe, even when it hurts, even when it doesn't look like it's working yet. That's the evidence of real faith. Faith will always demand something from you. It'll test your patience, your endurance, your sacrifice, because faith without action is empty. But when belief and effort unite, doors open, walls fall, mountains move, not because you're striving in your own strength, but because your effort is now a vehicle for something divine. You're not just working, you're cooperating with something greater than yourself. You're stepping into the current of purpose and the grind becomes sacred. If you say you believe but do nothing, then what you're really doing is lying to yourself, because what you believe will always show up in how you behave. If you believe in your vision, your days will reflect it. If you believe in your purpose, your habits will prove it. Your faith must touch your calendar. It must touch your schedule, your discipline, your mindset. Otherwise, it's just a fantasy wrapped in pretty words. There's no substitution for effort. There's no shortcut around consistency. You can't cheat the process and expect a promise. So yes, have faith, believe big, dream boldly, but back it up with relentless execution. Make every move count. Work like heaven is watching, because it is. And when your faith shows up in your grind, when your belief fuels your behavior, that's when the fantasy becomes reality. That's when the vision manifests, because faith that doesn't move your feet isn't faith, it's fiction. Spiritual freedom comes from emotional control. There is no true power, no true clarity, and no lasting peace without the mastery of your emotions. The battle is not out there, it's in here. Inside your mind, inside your heart, inside the way you respond to pressure, to offense, to delay, to discomfort. Most people are slaves to how they feel. They're ruled by anger, fear, insecurity, pride, and the need to be validated. They think freedom is doing whatever you want, whenever you feel like it. But that's not freedom, that's bondage. Real freedom is the ability to feel deeply yet still choose wisely. It's the ability to experience pain and not let it poison your purpose. The one who can control emotion can control direction. Emotional control doesn't mean you suppress or ignore your feelings, it means you rule over them. You acknowledge their presence, but you don't hand them the keys to your life. Emotions can be powerful messengers, but they make terrible masters. Left unchecked, they'll lead you into destruction. They'll sabotage relationships, wreck your discipline, blur your vision, and pull you off your path. But when you're anchored in something higher, when you're governed by principle, not pressure, your emotions become tools, not traps. There's a level of peace you can only access once you no longer let your emotions decide your identity. Most people ride the emotional roller coaster up and down, high and low, constantly reacting to the world around them. They're confident when praised, but crushed when criticized. They're motivated when things go right, but completely lost when the storm hits. That's not stability. That's emotional slavery. But when you're in control, truly in control, you're no longer at the mercy of circumstances. You can be insulted and still stay focused. You can be tired and still show up. You can be under pressure and still operate in purpose. That's power. That's maturity. That's spiritual authority. You don't reach greatness through emotion. You reach it through obedience, through decisions made in alignment with vision, not feelings. That's how you gain internal freedom, because freedom is not found in reacting to everything. It's found in responding with wisdom, with clarity, with intentionality. It's knowing that your emotions are loud, but your purpose is louder. And when you prioritize purpose over how you feel in the moment, you begin to rise. You begin to separate from the crowd. You begin to make decisions that are no longer based on survival, but based on destiny. Spiritual freedom is the result of inner discipline. It's choosing patience when rage feels justified. It's choosing grace when revenge is screaming your name. It's choosing vision when fear is whispering lies. That's where your real strength is hidden, not in suppressing emotions, but in mastering them. Because once you gain control of what's happening inside, nothing outside can control you. And that kind of freedom, it can't be taken, it can't be shaken, and it can't be faked. It's earned, it's walked out, and it's the foundation of unbreakable purpose. So now you understand this journey, this fight. It's not about talent, it's not about luck, it's not about being chosen by others. It's about being chosen by yourself. It's about rising above the noise, mastering the chaos within, and doing the work day in and day out without needing a spotlight to validate your grind. The harder you work, the luckier you get, not because the world suddenly favors you, but because you become the kind of person favor can't ignore. You earn spiritual ground through sweat, discipline, detachment, and divine focus. You silence doubt, crush fear, and walk with the quiet, thunderous authority of someone who doesn't flinch, doesn't beg, and doesn't break. So walk like you're called. Move like you're anointed. Work like heaven is backing your every step. And when they ask how you did it, when they call it luck, you'll smile because you'll know the truth. You didn't wait for miracles. You became one.